It's pretty good skin. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. The leadership 6:30.
I don't know how it works yet.
You know how to work the old one? I just wanted to clarify that.
Starting to figure it out. They got me a new one.
I have a lot of that.
He'll come back.
Last week, I was just about committed to take my in-laws car back to their house, so it could stay there for the winter, and then I had a birthday party over at the gym, so I went to go check up on everybody, and I drove.
We'll hold the meeting to order at 6.
They just took to the flag of the United States. To the republic. One nation.
Brendan, take roll, please.
Council,
Here.
Councilwoman Beck. Councilwoman Campbell.
Here.
Councilman Hutchins
Here.
and Mayor Crew.
Here. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Make the motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to approval of the minutes, from the public hearing on November 15th.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to approval of the regular minutes from November 15th.
Motion.
Second.
Aye.
Want to approval of the bills, is there a motion to approve deposits in the amount of $320,895.42? Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Your motion to approve accounts payable in the amount of $503,482.98.
Motion. On page 21. Page 21.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Your motion to approve payroll in the amount of $36,845.00.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve transmittals in the amount of $11,570.00? So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move on to correspondence. First on the correspondence, there's a letter from Kyle St. Clair, the Wyoming Liaison and Sanitary Survey Tech review lead for the Water Division. For EPA for Region 8. This is talking about the status of the rail union negotiations and potential chemical shortages. You haven't had a chance to read that. Ron, did you have time to speak with our guys about where we are?
I did, so I asked Chuck about it. He was aware of the situation. He says that we have chemicals, for the wastewater to last until February. And we have the chemicals for the wells that put us out into April. And he and I are going to check with our vendors in Salt Lake City and make sure that they have chemicals available. And if we need to, we don't ship from rail Salt Lake to here anyway. It's all truck. So we think we're good, but we're going to double check their supply and make sure that they have an adequate amount. If not, then we'll order early and get a stockpile in.
Okay.
We'll keep the council aware of that.
Okay.
Ron, I talked about that a little bit earlier too. I don't have any reservation about committing the rest of the budgeted amounts for those
Yeah.
chemicals. If we got a place to store them, we're gonna use them. So to spend what we have left in the budget for this fiscal year and just get them here on. Can't hurt us.
Yeah.
Well, that's, and I know we just got approved and just got put on 4 cylinders. Chlorine and
Drum of bisulfite.
4 drums of bisulfite solution. I think for there. So, Ron, if you want to get with those guys and see look at the budget and we can figure out where we're at, if we need to work some more now.
We're sitting on a lot of deposits for the barrels and drums that they refuse to take back. They bring the stuff in, but they say they're not placarded to return the empties. So I'm not sure kind of placard they need, but we'll figure that out. So we're getting quite a bit of it.
Next up under correspondence is the notice of non-compliance. This non-compliance, I believe, deals with, we were supposed to collect a set of 10 lead and copper wire pin samples between June 1st and September 30th. And those samples were not taken and submitted in a timely manner. Talking with Chuck and those guys that did get those samples collected and have sent them in, but this is just our notice of non-compliance there. Any questions on that?
And more to that, Creed, we have one more set of tests to take tomorrow morning, and then they're going to drive them to Casper and get them FedExed out. So that'll be the last set for the year.
Anyone else have any questions?
It's the notice of non-compliance to reporting, not water quality, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, it's just a reporting issue.
When I talked to Chuck about it, he said it might affect our CCR. Maybe it's a consumer conference report or something, or it might be noted on there, but also noted that that the samples were taken and submitted and
So was this just forgotten or did the guys,
yeah, so I talked to John Winter about it before he left, and they had it on their calendar, they had it on their board, and it was one of the deals they just missed. But he said as soon as they realized they missed, it was first part of October, I think, when they noticed it. And so they went out, got their samples and sent them in. I think he called the EPA and they said, well, we passed the deadline, it doesn't matter, but they went and did the collection and went and sent them in. So my understanding, part of the letter is that you needed to go collect those samples and get them turned in as soon as possible. And I think we're already. So. Okay. Next on under correspondence is from Bank of Commerce, a letter of interest for the 2023 depository. It says members of the town council, or members of the town council of Saratoga. Bank of Commerce would like to make an application to be designated for 2023 as a depository for the town of Saratoga. Please find the enclosed formal application. We sincerely appreciate your consideration of this designation. Sincerely, Conference President CEO. I think that's from all right. Designated for the depository is something that happens right after first year by the new council. So, Chuck and you guys, that'll be up to you guys.
I think historically we've had all 3 banks as approved depositories. And I think our primary banking is done with RMB because they actually have a commercial, Our system in the town, but historically, Bank of the West, Bank of Commerce, and R&D have all been approved in every January, if I recall correctly. Karen, does that sound right?
Yes.
That and Wildstar, I think.
Also, it's a good point.
Okay, was there any other correspondence? Okay. Any items from the public? Okay, council comments. One thing I'd say is, one of the deals that'll be discussed tonight, I think on the agenda is under, Water and Sewer Joint Powers Board, Spring Ave shutdown. I have talked to the attorneys are gonna call in on conference calls, so, at 6:30, we are going to halt wherever we are, on the agenda. Or wrap up whatever current business we're discussing, and we'll, jump down to that and then come back. Resume the agenda, but at 6:30, we'll be moving on to that subject, so. Moving on to reports from departments, starting at Town Hall, the Carbon County Senior Services Agreement. If I recall from last meeting, this is something that, I think someone from the senior center had comments on it. Brenda, do you want to take us word to Marie talk to you all? Okay. I'd say let's just table it now until Marie's at the next meeting and figure out if they're good with the agreement as is.
The indication of the protection was.
I don't, my recollection was that there, or I think it was more of a point of clarification, possibly from the senior center, but I don't recall what that was. Marie was, I think, waiting to hear back from her. So
I'll make a motion to table at our last meeting.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up is bank reconciliations. George, I saw a couple emails going back and forth between you and Stu. My understanding is we're close to having fiscal year 22 wrapped up for the Rex. Is that right?
Yes.
Is it? Okay. And I know,
Any indication on how we're doing on the hours allotted to Stu? Is that?
I don't know, I'll email and check with him.
He did mention that he's keeping the hours down to, to stay within that range. So he's aware.
Yeah, I'll email him and ask kind of where he is to date, and I'll email it up to the council. Next up is the Valley Village childcare.
Hello, once again. So we heard you when you said that you did not want to go on being a landlord and that you did not have a budget to fund the repairs. And through help of many, there's so many people we can't thank enough, we were able to collectively put together a proposal that we sent to you on November 18th, asking you to consider an alternative. And it relies on Wyoming statute 15-1-112, which basically says that you as the town can sell the property without a bid or public offer of sale if you believe that it is in the best interests of the community. So recapping the background here, we have from your comments and from the master plan of 2016 that childcare is a critical need for the community. And currently what's going on is childcare is provided in a building owned by Jason Ridgway up at 11th and Bridge. And it serves 23 people. It can serve 23 people plus 4 infants. The XL preschool is in trailers that are on the St. Anne's Catholic Church grounds, and they are in need of an upgraded facility. So our proposal joint proposal is that we be in a single location that will support 30 to 35 children for each group. It will enable 10 additional infants, and it will allow all children in childcare at an appropriate age to walk down the hall to make themselves available to preschool. Excel provides not only preschool, but they do screenings at no cost. They're a vital part of children being ready to move into kindergarten with a curriculum that is designed to go directly into our public school system. So with agreement that there is a need and an agreement that this would work for everyone, what we are saying is that the total cost to update the facility to meet all state requirements is over $600,000 without furnishings. And that would accommodate up to 80 children. We have funding to do that. And we have funding to do the major maintenance repairs that have been deferred. And the way we can do that is if we are the owners of the building. So we are proposing with two pieces of paper, one which is the consent from Corbett that allows you to sell for $1 the property to Valley Village. And we are in the process of making a contractual agreement with Excel that will support our continuing partnership. The other piece of paper that you have is the one that says how the deed would be transferred, and I believe you've had time to actually review that. And I am here tonight asking whether we can move forward with that. And I bring you the signed document from Corbett.
Perfect, thank you. So when I did get you guys' email, I did forward that on to James. They did review it, on the proposed deed, there was some issues there, but she thought overall fundamentally, that is something that was doable. That's the route the council wanted to move forward. One of the things that she'd mentioned, the statute that you were referring to was same statute that we were looking at when we were considering the land swap for the Never Forget Park. Some of the stipulations within the statute is that it does have to have an appraisal. It does have to be advertised for 3 weeks after receiving the appraisal with the value there. And there has to be a public. They were a little concerned after reviewing the deed that it would meet the rule of perpetuities. And she went into a lot of legal jargon after that. But after research, they felt that there was a way to do that through a fee simple determination, I think is what they called it. And what that would do is have that reverter clause in it, that if something to the effect that if for some reason that building was ever not used for childcare or early education services, if it stopped being what you guys were wanting it to be, that property would revert back to the town.
Absolutely.
And she said, for the consideration, she felt that between the $1 for consideration, just that obviously community benefit to it, which is what we were looking at. The park with the land swap was, that the benefit to the community, which is something that's been outlined as a community. Once it becomes your guys' property, there'll be tax revenue off of it, so there's a number of things for the consideration that she thought that a contract for $1 would work. With the process of getting the appraisal and doing the notices and all that, she said, there's no way that this council will be able to get that done
Right.
for you guys this year. And, I think it's going to be up to the next council. Chuck and Jerry and Mike and Kathy and Kyle to determine what they want that consideration to be. But Jane felt that, if it's something that council was in favor of moving forward with, that, this council could darn sure give its recommendation to move forward with it.
I have a question. Is there any way this council can start the ball rolling?
So the first leg of the thing that we'd have to get done is get an appraisal.
Yes.
Um,
And that's what I asked. is how
and we can get that ball rolling, as soon as possible. I said with holidays and all that, I'd be shocked if we'd have an appraisal back till January sometime. But that's the first step in the process, and then once you have that back, then it's, noticing a public hearing for 3 consecutive weeks, and then having the public hearing and then council meeting, you guys deciding what you want to do.
And why I asked that, if this does go through, which I feel strongly that it will. That just moves their timeline up because they're gonna wanna get into it early, and they're gonna have to apply for grants, so. The more time we can give them, the more time things can get done, through the good time of through the summer months. So they can be ready to go by at least, at the start of the school year. Or maybe even sooner.
So
Who pays for the appraisal?
Well, let me take that one. Our board has approved up to $2,500 to fund the appraisal if it's a budgetary constraint for the town.
okay.
I got a couple things, but just on that note real quick first. There is an appraisal. It's clearly outdated,
Mhm.
Right.
but there was an appraisal done without council approval at one point in time,
How long is that, John?
2019, I believe.
19, yeah. Does that check the box legally? Does it have to be within a certain time?
Jane thought we'd need an updated appraisal. My thought on to minimize some of the costs is possibly reaching out to the same appraiser. He's got a lot of the legwork already done for that appraisal. Familiar with the building, familiar with the site. That'd be where I'd start. I know there's 2 other appraisers that do quite a bit of work in the community. They're not from around here, but they do a lot of work in the community for real estate purposes. We can get all 3 numbers and call them, and I can get a hold of them and get quotes to see what it would cost to do that building.
Sure.
And see what that cost is.
The other thing I just wanted to hit on, I think, this topic has certainly, much public interest. I've gotten emails and text messages, and I think we glossed over a couple things, and I just want to reiterate them so it's really clear. So, Mr. Hodges, you listening? Number one, town, per the agreement with Corbett, when that building was gifted to the town. Per that agreement, town cannot sell it without their approval. It's a key underlying point, because a lot of people have asked me why the town doesn't just sell it outright to the highest bidder and then utilize those funds to do something else productive for the community. That is the reason why. I think that underlying point needs to be well understood and well communicated. That leaves us with 2 options as far as we've all can speak. It's not pretty good, I think. Continue to be a landlord and lease the building, in which case we would have to invest significant amount of deferred maintenance in order to continue having that building be usable. We don't have that budgeted. We don't have the money appropriated to do that. And so the option that remains is, I use the word gift, even though per the statute that was cited, which is 15-1-112, it would be a sale for $1 with the consideration that it is a community benefit, which I think we can all agree to. I don't think anybody disputes that there is a need and that this would provide a benefit to the community in perpetuity to have it be utilized this way. The other thing that was mentioned that I think just everybody really needs to hear is there is a reverter on the deed that says if Valley Village and Excel if it ever ceases to be utilized for early childcare development, either childcare or about the development that benefits the community, that it reverts back to the town at that time. The way I see that is we would then, this council, which will be a different council at that time, if that ever does happen, will then be able to carry on the legacy of the Corbett Foundation in building that building for community benefit, for a community purpose. And that it's filled its role as a clinic. It can now carry out its role as childcare. And if it ever ceases to be that, it can fill a role in some other team. And so just wanted to reiterate that because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about, number one, what the options truly are available to us. And number two, all the nitty-gritty details of this. The other point that I wanted to make or question to ask is, when this was first proposed to the council, it was proposed as a joint venture between Excel and Valley Village. I think part of the appeal to that and part of the public receptiveness to it was that it was a community project, right?
I agree.
There were multiple entities that were coming together and working towards a common shared goal.
Yes.
And so you mentioned that you don't have an agreement in place between Valley Village and Excel.
Right.
The way that this contract is worded is it's a sale to Valley Village.
Yes.
So I think the only other thing that is kind of left hanging out there that I would like to have some reassurance about is that it is still truly a joint project between the two entities, and that we have some assurance that if it's a lease that you guys need to work out over the next month or so. I understand you're meeting later this week to continue your internal conversations. It doesn't need to be a part of that, but I just want the assurance.
Yes, we are not only meeting together, we are meeting with legal counsel
Mhm.
to formulate that agreement. So yes, that is what that purpose of that meeting is.
Sure.
Because that's a different agreement than when we were first talking about a rental. So we needed to modify what we had originally drafted just as a memorandum of understanding.
Sure. And I understand the legal reasons why
Yep,
it had to be modified.
right.
I just want to make sure that everybody is still enhancing kumbaya and we're moving forward together, because the last thing I want is perception, right or wrong, is the perception that the town is gifting this to one particular entity,
Right.
or, boil it down that the town's giving it to Ellie Raymer. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay?
So
I mean, let's just be frank.
let's be frank. So we can't operate, Valley Village can't operate on our own in that building. We need Excel. And there is no purpose in doing this unless we are partners. So Valley Village is highly motivated for a partnership. I spoke with Jamie Stein, who's the executive director of Excel this week, and she is equally motivated because the buildings, the structures they are in, she considers to be inadequate for the care of our children. And so we collectively are meeting with the attorney on Friday for the very purpose of and he is suggesting that we have an ongoing contractual agreement, not just a memorandum of understanding or a lease, because that's a little less binding. Those are a little less binding than having a contractual agreement. And in that agreement, the things that Jamie and I are very adamant about in our discussion is that should we cease to exist, then Excel will be responsible for putting a childcare in the other half. Or if they cease to exist, we will be responsible for putting preschool education in the half that they vacate. So that it's very clear.
That's the community need we're all.
That's the community need. Yes.
And I don't think most residents of Saratoga really care who's in what half or what the name of the entity is. We just want to ensure that if this is going to be the appropriate use for this building,
Right.
that meets that need.
And the other point that I would make is the reason the documents are done to one entity is legal advice was that was the most expeditious way to make this happen. And we,
You guys have to go form your own separate joint venture.
exactly. And we have funds that will allow us to begin the maintenance almost immediately upon the departure of the medical clinic personnel.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, thank you.
yes,
With that said, I think, I would just express my opinion on the council. I'm in favor of moving forward. I think, getting ordering the appraisal, and getting that ball rolling, as Chuck said, is, the right thing to do. It still provides, it's gonna be probably a couple months worth of continued, public input discussion. This is not a final decision being made tonight. There will be a hearing before any of this is finalized. That's the other thing that needs to be well understood. And I would just ask that we and the incoming council both ensure that before any decisions are finalized, that we have the assurance that partnership and that agreement remains in place.
I'd agree with that. And like I said, I think when we first started this conversation, we were talking about what they did in Rollins. And I think that was one of the concerns I had with how that was set up in Rollins was one wing and one wing. And that party leaves and that goes back to the town and what's town can do with half the building or whatnot.
yeah, you are, I didn't discuss that here, but the deal in Rollins, it's a duplex. One has one half and one has another. There's no binding of the partnership that ensures what's best for the children. And that's really the goal.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to order the appraisal with Valley Village funding up to $2,500 of it.
Okay, if the appraisal is over $2,500, do we want to set a max for council contribution?
I think that would be wise. Let me look up what the one cost in 2019.
I think the last couple of appraisals we had on the town lots, which I know lots be a little bit different, but I think they were close to $2,500. If I recall. Saying the one back then was $5,000.
Yeah, my recollection was closer to 5, but I'll have it here in just a second.
The last one we did was for the property up on the hill, but it didn't have a building on it, so it may be a little bit more than that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that was when Ellie and I discussed, like I said, the guy that did the original appraisal, where he's familiar with building and all that, he's gonna have some of that legwork already done, so there's some cost savings there, but I would expect it to be more in general if it was just 3 random individuals off the street just come to do the appraisal.
So do you think amount up to $2,000 on the town's part?
Yeah, the invoice in 2019 was $3,500. As Creed said, if the same appraiser does it, hopefully there should be some cost savings, so I would think it would be less than 4.
Yeah.
I would hope. So if we dip in 2 and they're in for 2,500, that gives us a budget of 4,500 should be
Enough, I would think.
enough.
Do you want to remake your motion?
I'll make the motion to allow the mayor to solicit quotes for appraisal and make a decision as to the best appraiser to move forward with the cost of up to $2,000 to the town.
I would second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. It's just after 6:30, so that's we move on down to item 33 on our agenda, the spring half shutdown. And it's on the line here.
You have more messages.
Jane, you there? Nope. You know how to get you guys on. She just texted me, they're just waiting for the host.
They're waiting for the reach now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
To choose.
navigate over to participants, I think. And that arrow pointing up next to participants.
Left. To pass the green share screen. Further left. Left, left, left.
Okay. Invite?
No, click on the participants. That's, I think they were gonna call into the conference call. She wasn't, their office now was out for the Zoom.
You have new messages.
So, 365.
Yeah.
New messages.
That one, nobody's, it's just raised.
4, 2, 5. 6.
It's for access.
You have new messages.
You got new messages, you gotta hit, I think it's pound, you get a dial tone.
Yeah. Let me try this one. 4, 3, 6.
All right, I will.
Hit the phone icon, dial someone and number, dial phone number. So.
And
The pound is Tina John.
yeah. That's the phone icon. We already did that.
Mhm.
7-1 and then pound.
I thought there had to be a dial tone or something.
Well, that's, it says the dial 7.
You have new messages.
Let this thing get hooked up. to the internet. Wonder if that's the problem.
No, whatever we can do, say, I got the link for that.
What's going on? Well, Papa's here. No, seriously. Hey, Jane, we're having IT problems getting you on the conference call module. Is there any ways you guys can hop on the Zoom?
I think it's dial 7-1 and then. You try that.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm.
You have new messages.
Okay, I'm seeing SPKM.
That, yeah.
So double click on that. Okay, can you hear us, Jane?
I'm not, Brenda, see the microphone, there you go.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So we're just getting ready to start the Spring Ave shutdown. Discussion.
Oops. See the green arrow?
There?
Yeah.
Okay, we're there.
Jane, are you still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, so we're just getting ready to start Spring Ave shutdown with Lewis and Lewis. I see we got Caleb and Josh from Lewis and Lewis here. They sent us a proposal, I guess you call it. Caleb, do you want to come up and kind of go over the proposal with council?
Mayor, how you doing? Council. As far as discussing it, would you like me to just kind of discuss the options? Have you guys reviewed the options?
Yeah, I've reviewed them. I think maybe just gonna go through, hit the highlights of each option, just kind of bring everyone in.
So as we submitted before we kind of ran into the situation with our hot plant being shut down for the year, our proposal to the town was to accept temporary pavement, opening the roads up to the public, getting it to a point where we're at a point in the season, we can't do much more that would benefit the town or Lewis and Lewis at this point. And with that, give us the option to where we would not be assessed liquidated damages, be granted a winter shutdown during this period. Per this letter, we're no longer able to provide hot plant mix services, but still, as you guys have seen out on the road coming here tonight, do a blacktop pavement in RAP, recycled asphalt pavement millings. And once again, ask the town to allow us a winter shutdown with no liquidated damages being assessed. That was option one. Part of that option one is that we agreed to reimburse the town for any emergencies that may come up, whether it be a water line break, some kind of issue that's associated with our project. And really be there to not only ask the town to help us in those ways, but also us come and assist and kind of take control of that and take care of any issues that do come up on the project, along with any large maintenance that needs to be handled. Really, that's the gist of option one. Option two is that the town does not accept option one. So option two is that the town chooses to assess liquidated damages based on the work we have completed. We would ask the town to accept a partial occupancy, which pursuant to that paragraph 6.5 in the agreement does say that it would be used for the intended use of the town, which in letter states that everyone at this point, whether on the new line or the old line, has water through the winter. And this in turn would grant substantial completion. Option three is if option one or two were denied, we would try to, in our best interest and honestly, the traveling public, shut the portions of the project down that are not fully functional, don't have paved roads, don't have concrete, valley gutters set in, and really just keep that portion of the project, our portion of the project for the time being, since we are assumed if option three comes that liquidated damages will be assessed during this winter period, and really just kind of keep everybody off the project. So there's no liability on our end if there were to be some kind of situation that comes up as far as an accident, someone trips and falls within the project, anything simple like that. We just want to keep traffic off of it, also for the reason that it's pretty well known in our industry that if we get traffic on that all year, the winter with freeze thaws, stuff like that, that frost is going to get pushed farther into the ground, which may push us to not being able to start the project as early as we want to in the next season. With that, we also submitted a tentative schedule, just kind of showing that tentative start date of March 20th. We kind of talked back and forth in the workshop about how this is kind of a arbitrary date, but our goal is to get in here as soon as possible next year and get this job finished up as long as weather allows and it provides a good product. So that schedule kind of shows we show a March 20th start date just based off of that first Monday after March 15th. If everything goes well, which we assume it would in the better spring seasons than what we've been dealing with in the last month and a half or so, we should be done by the end of April with this project. And it is understood that, once we come to an agreement with the town on an actual start date that the town sees fit for us and that we see fit that we can perform the work and damages. Pretty much in one or two would begin being assessed again and in that amount.
Um. Anyone have any questions for Caleb? Jane, have you and Ray had time to review Caleb's proposals?
Yeah, we have.
Okay, there, I know through the workshop, there was a number of questions on the partial occupancy, which I think's kind of the premise of option 2 is. Can you guys speak to that? I mean, I think this was not something that was discussed at the workshop we had a week ago. You know, and from all the correspondence that I've seen from the Joint Powers Board and the council, that I don't know that that's something we can accept or should accept. Could you guys speak to the ramifications of that?
Well, this is Ray Martin. I would recommend against accepting a partial occupancy. I don't think it's going to meet the definition of substantial completion. Plus, there are other clauses in the contract that would come into play if that were to occur. A couple examples are by definition. I don't think it meets substantial completion. Furthermore, there's a section of the contract that says once you get a certificate of substantial completion, if that's what's contemplated, all remaining work has to be done within 16 days of getting that certificate of substantial completion. Obviously, that can't happen. Same applies to the definitions within final completion. There are also there'd be issues as far as warranties and the like that could be triggered once you give the certificate of substantial completion. Normally there you still have punch list items, but the warranties really don't go into effect until you have final completion. But if you're going to designate a portion there, you'd have to state in the certificate of substantial completion what warranties would or would not apply, and then that has insurance implications and all that. In any event, I would recommend against any designated portion being considered substantially complete. I just don't think it. I don't think you're there, and I think you're opening yourself up to some various interpretations of the contract if you try to go there.
Okay. Any other legal opinion of the remaining 2 options then?
Well, as we've spoken about before, option 1 seems to me to be a reasonable option. As we discussed the other day, you're getting your liquidated damages at this point in time. They would be held in abeyance during the winter shutdown and then start up when the work started, or you could have a date certain where liquidated damages would start to accrue again, whether the work started or not. That'd be another potential. But substantial, this contract, you're not limited to liquidated damages. In the event the town incurred other damages, you have an election of remedies where the town could still go after the contractor if there were still problems and damages that weren't perceived to be covered by liquidated damages. So by agreeing to hold the liquidated damages in abeyance during the winter shutdown, I don't think the town is exposing itself to where you're going to be at a loss at the end of the day with this thing, or exposed to risk of loss at the end of the day. I think it's more fair to the contractor, and I think it's still fair to the town To me, option one seems to make the most sense. And as we discussed, the LDs that have accrued to date look like they could take care of a good share, if not all of what you would expect to incur in the future. So again, to me, that seemed a reasonable approach. I can tell you, I do quite a bit of work involving YDOT projects for various contractors and the like. And I also used to do a lot of work for the railroad and was pretty familiar with YDOT's protocols and the like. And typically winter shutdowns, you don't have liquidated damages run throughout that whole shutdown period. Technically, could you in this instance? Yeah, I guess you could. Every contract has an implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing in it. And again, where the contractor, I think, is making reasonable steps here to get the project set for the winter shutdown. And if there's anything that occurs outside the ordinary, snow removal type maintenance, they've accepted the liability for those costs and the like. And so I don't know, it seems fair to both sides to take that approach. And again, because you have an election of remedies and you're not restricted just to liquidated damages, I don't think the town is exposing itself to loss or damages that it can't recover at the end of the project, even if you hold the liquidated damages into abeyance during the winter shutdown.
Ray, you kind of cut out at the first part there. Could you repeat that?
When you say the first part, I guess I don't know where I need to come in.
Oh, that's I'd asked if you had any opinion on option 3.
Oh, option 3. I just looked at that for a few minutes before we got on here, and gosh. Oh, as far as shutting everything down and minimizing it, seems like again, I think you're better off with option 1, where you can open those streets up and get things hooked up and the like. So for me, it just makes more sense to go with option 1.
Okay. I see we got a number of the members of the Joint Power Board here and the council elect. You guys have any questions or concerns that you'd like addressed?
My concern is what happens, and lo and behold, I've talked to you personally about this, but how much is the bond? How much did you guys have to post bond?
Imagine for the full price of the project, didn't you?
100%.
100%?
Yep.
And can you tell me how much was paid out so far?
Paid out. It's a policy with a third-party surety.
Okay.
If they fail to pay labor, pay subs, if there's a lien on the project due to their non-payment for materials, things of that nature, that would fall under the payment bond. And so we can have that third-party surety resolve that and come to essentially their aid in resolving that. The performance would be if they fail to perform, if they can't complete the project. Insolvency, anything like that were to happen, then the bonding company would come to either the contractor's aid and fund them to get it finished, or would potentially reimburse the town for hiring a third-party contractor to come in and say,
And Benson.
bond on this talk. Okay, there's a lot of.
That's been a few of the concerns that's been brought up to me by local citizens. What if they just don't come back? Who's gonna get stuck with the bill? And frankly, I couldn't answer it because I didn't know how the contract was set up or anything.
Yeah, if they don't, I mean, Ray jump in here, but if they don't come back, that would be, we call on the bond. And the bonding company would be an active participant resolving that one. Either through injecting cash into their company to get them to come back if that was the issue, or to maybe hire independently or reimburse the town to hire a contractor.
Yeah, the other thing I would add to that is the contractor would be very, very disincentivized to not come back, because that would impact his bonding capacity. This project was what, 2.1 million? And so I don't know what their bonding capacity is, but that would, in the spring season, you're bidding other work. And if you're not coming back, you're already limiting your bonding capacity, you're reducing it by 2.1 million, plus your reputation and the like. So
Yeah.
Well, and understand that our intent is to come back and get this done as soon. as
Well,
possible.
and I want you to understand that didn't come from me, that come from people outside, concerned citizens,
Yeah,
they're worried that the town's gonna get stuck with the ball. Not for me, because I understand, I just didn't know it was a full bonded project like that. Gary?
I don't have any questions.
So I sent an email out a few days ago. And let me start by acknowledging that we're getting solid legal advice that throughout the last 2 years, Jane and Patrick and Ray have provided us with what I consider excellent legal advice and help us navigate through a number of different situations, we'll say. But I'm frustrated by the desire this council to sometimes do what is the least legally precarious option in lieu of what is right. And so without rehashing some other stuff, I just think that, we have the obligation, we have a responsibility as the elected officials of the town to make the decisions that are best for the town of Saratoga and the residents of the town of Saratoga. And we ought to heed the legal advice that we are given, but it's not always about what is the most straightforward legal answer. And I go back to all the conversations we had in June when we were about to embark on this project, and all the hesitation and the reservations that people had about starting a project in June, not being able to get it done in time, and what were the prospects of having our streets open over the winter. All of those concerns were voiced, and we were given a guarantee by Lewis and Lewis that it was going to get done in the fall. And so we had a workshop on June 20th. We had a council meeting on June 21st. A letter of intent was executed and sent to Lewis and Lewis on June 22nd. In that letter of intent dated June 22nd, it's pretty darn straightforward if you ask me. It says, this is the maximum contract price. The notice to proceed will be issued no later than July 18th. Substantial completion will occur October 15th. Final completion will occur October 31st. Liquidated damages shall be assessed as follows: $1,000 per day and substantial completion, $750 per day and final completion. No suspension or extension of contract time shall be allowed due to weather, temperatures, or other environmental conditions. If you want anybody in town to understand what the contract says, they can take home all 70 pages and read it. But to me, that's what it says. First and foremost. And that was the agreement that we all had in front of us, collectively made the decision and agreed to proceed. I understand that the town has options to waive some of those contract requirements. I understand that we can suspend the liquidated damages. I don't see the benefit to the town in doing so. I think it just means that come spring, that you guys are going to be holding one or two less cards. And I don't see a benefit in doing that to you. And if you guys come back as you intend to do and finish the project and get it done, then you guys can negotiate an amicable solution. But until then, until it's done, I don't see the benefit in waiving our rights to liquidated damages I don't want to take any kind of partial ownership of the project or partial acceptance. And what you choose to do in terms of the options in front of us that are outlined in your letter, option 1, option 2, option 3. I kind of feel like it's not even really the town's position to decide and then expect you to follow one of those 3 options. There are already provisions in the contract that talk about the need to provide access, the need to protect your own work, the need to provide traffic control for public safety and pedestrian safety. All of that stuff is already in the contract, it's already in the plans, it's already in the specs. And I don't see any incentive for us to deviate from what's already in the plans and specs. I think it's clearly outlined. Everybody has responsibilities. And I think we follow the contract.
I have another question, and we talked about this, John. It's outlined in the contract that liquidated damages are negotiable at the end of the contract, correct?
No. There's no provision in the contract that at the end of the project that there's a reconciliation of liquidated damages. So whether it was, if they were assessed all winter or they weren't, there's no provision where that says that, hey, we have to prove our actual damages.
Huh? That how you read the contract?
Ray, would you like to step in on that?
Please.
I agree with what you just said. By definition, liquidated damages are not ascertainable per se, so the parties agree up front what they will accept as being the damages. And so if you were to assess them throughout the winter, I don't think it would behoove you to go ahead then and say, okay, now we're going to reconcile what our actual damages were, the liquidated damages, presume that that's what those damages are. And that's the way the court typically looks at them. And again, addressing the other gentleman's view on just stick with the contract. That's what the contract says. I don't disagree. You can do that. I think realities change sometime on the ground, and especially in the COVID environment, we had supply chain issues and the like. And I'm not weighing in on that here. I'm not saying that was an issue, but I'm just saying that there's times where things come up that to apply the contract strictly, is that the best approach? One of the things that I see, and I think it can apply, especially in a small town where you don't get a lot of bids on projects. And it sounds like I'm being an advocate here. But one of the things that I think people lose sight of sometimes is that from a policy perspective, you can apply and you can put it to, you can follow it down the line on a contract. But at the end of the day, if you're only getting 1 and 2 bids on some of your projects and the like, and if you don't work with people or contractors or individuals when conditions change for whatever reasons, and you're going to put out that next bid, I think you run the risk of getting fewer bidders or higher bids. And I know from some of my contractor friends that if they think it's too tight a schedule, they build in the liquidated damages into their bids, and you end up getting higher bids than what you would normally get. And so I don't know. I guess I don't agree with the approach personally. I don't agree. So I'm not talking strictly legalities here. I just don't agree with an approach that, this is what the contract says. The devil be damned if we have any change of conditions or things that we have to adjust for. Can you legally take that position? You can. Are you protected without taking that position? You are. Are you going to perceived as being fair, more fair, and you're still protecting the citizens? Yes, you are. if you take the draconian approach, or what I'm calling a draconian approach, and you say, let's go ahead and have liquidated damages through the winter period. What I'm saying as a taxpayer, because I've looked at it from that perspective, is that you're opening yourself up to higher bids or no bids on your projects if you're perceived as not looking at the situation on the ground and how you're approaching things. And again, to me, the bottom line is, are you protected? Are the taxpayers protected, even without taking liquidated damages over the winter shutdown? I think you are. And so, again, the gentleman that spoke last, I don't know all the people here, so I just refer to it that way. I'm not going to say that legally you couldn't assess liquidated damages over the winter shutdown. I think you can. But under the circumstances, especially in light of the fact that the town is still protected, if you've had more damage at the end of the day, I don't think it serves your interest as a small community in the long run. I think you're going to find the contracting community out there will understand that you work with people. I see that with YDOT all the time. You know, there's so many contractors in the state that bid YDOT jobs, and there are contractors that come from out of state and the like. And you know, you get a reputation for fairness and how you deal with things. And I think in the long run, it serves your interest because you get more bidders, you get better bids because they're not building into it the worst case scenario of how they're going to have to deal with you if things go awry. So I'm giving you opinions that go outside just the legal approach, but I'm hearkening back to my long experience in the construction trades and the like in public entities. And I've seen these things time and time again. And that's how I've come down on these kinds of things. So take it for what it's worth. But again, legally, I think you've got a lot of options on the table. I think you got to do a little soul searching about where you go with it.
Ray, it's John Nelson. And I appreciate everything you just said. I think speak to the fairness component and being sensitive to what occurred on the ground. That there weren't any changes in condition. There weren't any unforeseen conditions. There weren't any, the town did not hinder the contractor's progress, did not interfere with their work area. Had any of those conditions occurred, and clearly we would be talking about an amicable way to adjust contract times and or price to account for what would be fairly compensatory towards the contractor.
I got to speak to that. When we first went through these workshops, we offered a good faith effort, as your attorneys just discussed.
Hey,
all of our,
would you come up just so the journalists can hear as well, please?
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
When we first had these workshops, it was literally just to get this project budgeted to move forward. And we did say that we had a lot of faith that we would get these projects done. But in a good faith effort, just as the attorney, as he stated, in a good faith effort, we chose to waive our construction phase costing at the beginning of the project, just to allow for the town to get this project awarded, get it moving forward with. At that time, we all knew this project had to be done. And there's been things that have shown on that project that if it didn't get done, the town would be dealing with it instead of us at this point. And that's been very well shown. There's also been times in this project where, yes, we had to figure out ourselves what the dewatering on this project was. For the first portion of this project, it went well. It took us a little bit to figure it out. This is the first time we've done any type of dewatering like this in a situation like this for the water line. It took us some time to figure out. We did very well for about more than half of this project laying that pipe with the process we had. We go to this bore location, digging the bore pits. We had to spend extra dollars to dig 60-foot wells wait for that time frame for this to be dewatered, which for the first portion of the project went well. We run into a situation like this, that is a change in condition. Also,
Were the ground conditions different than what was indicated on the bore logs? And the potholing you guys performed before you started?
we didn't go 60 feet deep. You can't go 60 feet deep. And go look at
You
that.
went to where your pipe zone was, right?
Yeah,
Where your bore pit was, and so you could see that it was wet,
it was not at the time. That is a change in condition.
really.
You go 60 feet deep. We saw the water at 6 feet. Okay, once again, here's another condition that changed. We specifically put in our guaranteed maximum price that no imported fill outside of the fill that was already in the roadway was not considered part of the contract and should be considered, if it comes up, an additional pay. We ran into that situation very early in the project where we found silty. What's the word, Ward? Vegetative material that we came to the town and said, if we have to deal with this material, it will take a lot of extra time to do this project. We went and found a source from YDOT that gave us that material for free. We asked for the cost to go load this material, haul in new material, instead of, per recommendation of the engineer, waiting 3 weeks for that vegetative material to dry out just so we could put it back in the hole. We knew we didn't have time for that. So we took it upon ourselves, when you denied paying us extra money for that, to do it ourselves at our own cost. That is another good faith effort, because if we did not do that, we would continue down the project, leaving all of that material sitting out for 3 weeks. And we would have just kept digging and nobody would have had access. We did our best to give access to everybody at every single point in time on this project.
So I have a question for you, Caleb, before you sit down, if you will. So you just talked about 2 changing conditions and then what we're talking about here is trust, right?
Yeah,
So if you're concerned, we've all said we don't want to be punitive, that we're not gonna take advantage of you at the end of the job and everything.
yeah.
But you can't really trust us to do that, right? I mean, once we got your money, are we gonna give it back? That's
That's the understanding that we're at. That's
Right.
definitely the understanding.
So for me, one of my concerns, because you just talked about changing conditions and one of my concerns is if we don't follow the letter of the contract, are you going to throw a bunch of change orders on the table at the end of the job? It's the same trust that you're trying to deal with, I'm trying to deal with, right?
We've already incurred those costs.
I know you have, but there's nothing that prevents you from writing a change order and throwing them on the table. Even though there's a clause in the contract for notification and shall be in writing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
All of that stuff tends to get lost when you get into a courtroom, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about trust here. And are we going to be honest and faithful and non-punitive at the end of the job? And are you going to show up at the end of the job? And like you said, you did things at your cost, but the contract's not over yet. So I'm not sure what that means, that you did them at your cost. Have you absorbed the cost to date, but you plan on billing for them later? So that's the real issue here, right? And normally, when there's that kind of a trust problem, we always revert back to the paper because everybody trusts the contractor. We wouldn't have signed it. And so that's the thing we're wrestling with right here. And I hear what the lawyers are saying, and I have a lot of respect for what they're saying. I think I could be willing to settle. Well, I'm not even going to say it yet. I think I could be willing to negotiate at this time, but there's things out there that unknowns. Now, I know that Ray said that we have other provisions in the contract to make the town whole. And I believe he's probably right that we do have that, but I don't know what the full extent at the end of this job, how do you see it shaking out? If we didn't hold out LDs, how do you think the end of the job is? You think you're just going to finish up And nobody's gonna ask for any more money from the other person and then we
I'll
just,
tell you what, we're gonna finish this job no matter what. Based on your guys' decisions, we'll just go from there. I mean, our intent is to be a good contractor in good faith. Our main goal is to get this project done. That's about all I got to say.
okay.
Richard, Craig?
Probably mirror what Ron just said, and I think I can safely speak for the Joint Powers Board in saying that at the end of the project, nobody has any intentions of assessing any fees outside of our costs incurred. Meaning professional services, engineering, legal, whatever might come arise, but I feel that veering from that contract at this point puts us in potential jeopardy of not only this project, but future projects in the fact of what good is our contracts that we enter into with these contractors if we're not going to adhere to them. I get along great with these guys. I think they're doing a good job. It is taking a little longer, but I have no questions about their workmanship. We did sign a contract. It is a binding agreement between all parties. And that's, I feel the Joint Powers Board is more on the lines of adhere to the contract.
No, I guess I'd have a question then. So is the Joint Powers Board concern potential for additional damages if LDs aren't assessed?
It's unknown.
That's the big question is we don't know what's going to happen in a week. I mean, just like right before the workshop, water main blew up right over here. I mean, what's to say it couldn't happen right here again? I mean, we don't know. We don't know what tomorrow's going to do.
And I believe under option one, it's that they'll reimburse fully if there is that. So that's not taken out of the limited damage pot, right? There's a liquid damages pot over here. And there's we got a water leak here happens. They reimburse fully for it. That doesn't affect our liquid data damages. So how is that a concern?
So, I mean, my big concern, I'm there with Ron and Richard all said, I mean, it's the contract. They were fully aware before they even signed the contract of what the intent was. I mean, it's very clear. And we've always been very clear. We were transparent about groundwater. So that, groundwater, soils, everything was very transparent from the beginning. And so, I mean, I've been going each way, winter shutdown and the, LDs throughout the winter. And I'm just leaning towards the LDs through the winter. It takes the risk off the town. They're trying to take the risk off them. That's what they're doing, which I appreciate what they're doing. They're trying to reduce their risk, but that adds more risk to the town. I mean, if we were to amend the contract, which we can, like Ray's saying, I mean, that's one option for sure. But I mean, it is what it is. The contract, everybody was fully aware. Everybody was fully aware before this contract was even signed.
The one thing I'll add too is a group of us have been meeting with these guys every week since the beginning of the project. Me personally, part of my decisions based off of they showed up 3 weeks later than they paid for their start date. Every week in these meetings by the engineers, by everybody, we were asked, where's our progress schedule? Can we bring more help in? What can be done to speed this project up? And it was just never really put into motion. And so that's, I guess, basing my personal decision on adhering to that contract is they, throughout the infancy of this project, they were getting leaned on very hard to pick up the pace, figure out a way to get in. And finally, when they were able to bring their crew down from the airport was when they made the real big first headway. And then it kind of picked up after that. So.
Yeah. And I sat in a lot of those meetings with you and Craig and Ron. And like I said, I fully echo what you said. I think, by all accounts, they do great work. Like I said, the planning has not been great. I think, that's what Dean Ron was touching on at the workshop, is the optics of it of, it's Wednesday afternoon, 2 months ago when it's nice weather and they're shutting down for the day. And it's Saturday and it's 75 degrees out in September and they're not here, and like I said, I think how I'm looking at it is we are where we are now. We signed a contract. They were fully aware of it. They showed up late. And so I started running the numbers on it. And so by all accounts, Lewis and Lewis intends to be out of here December 15th. Is that correct? And so on December 15th, by my calculations, we're going to have $85,500 in liquidated damages already assessed. And by their account, it's going to take 6 weeks to complete the project when they come back. Now, we all know we're going to have storms, there's going to be stuff where that could be pushed out, but assuming they had it done in 6 weeks, that's another $73,500 in liquidated damages. So that's, call it $160,000 in liquidated damages. I talked to Josh Morris from TO today and I said, where are we at billing wise? And one of the things Ray and I talked about yesterday was, what are the other damages, and I think the one thing with the guaranteed max price is had they shown up when they said they were going to show up, had a couple crews, had all their guys here and working and knocked this project out in a real timely manner, that guaranteed max price we might not have hit. And per contract, that benefit goes back to the town, if they didn't reach that, and so I guess how I look at it is, we're going to have $160,000 if we decide to halt liquidated damage. And like I said, there will be, I'm sure, a lot more discussion on it. But talking to Josh about it to see where he was, and he said to date, he thought we were right at $107,000. We budgeted 110. So he said, assume you've used up everything you guys budgeted, for inspection services. And obviously we're going to come back and he reviewed their schedule. He assumed that he's looking at probably 15 days of inspection for the water line installation. He said, there's probably another 6 days to come back to inspect paving, forms for valley pans, things of that sort. And I said, back the napkin ballpark, give me an idea what you're thinking it's going to cost to get you guys out of here, and he said he thought ballpark, he's looking at 50, 60 grand. And right now we're talking, we'd assess 160,000. And so what I'm struggling with from talking to Ray on what's reasonable and fair, is there's another 100 grand out there. Assuming we come to an agreement with them and we don't end up in court, Jane and them's bills are going to go down significantly after this process. I don't see what other damages are. If there's an issue with the water line and they're paying for it, where's our other damage? And I guess that's a question I keep asking is what could potentially be our other damages? We've got 2 engineers in here. We got a contractor. We got a guy that works for a large contracting company. What other damages could be there? And I guess that's what I'm trying to wrap my brain around of what's the other damage. And then, like Ray said, in the contract is if the actual damages are above what the liquidated damages are, there's a provision in the contract to enforce that, to go and get those damages. John, you always have something to say, so.
I mean, I've been at this a while too, right? Let me answer your question about what the other damages could be. I don't say this to try to create a hostile environment or allude to any kind of litigation. That's not how I see this going. See them coming back and finishing it and it getting done and none of us are going to court. That's how I see things going. But if you want the answer to the question of what other damages could there be, is there could be a bunch of litigation between now and the end of the job or after the end of the job. There could be. We don't know until the job is done and we take acceptance of it and we close this thing out and we've got a certificate of substantial completion. We don't know what it's gonna be. That's what I'm resting my opinion on, is without knowing, how do you best protect the town? And what is the advantage to waiving any of our rights under our contract? I don't see the advantage. I understand the fairness argument. I take Ray's comments to heart. I understand what he's saying about the contract environment. I get it. I've been there. But I'd also say, one of the things I love doing work for, like the Army Corps of Engineers, one of the reasons I love working for them is because everything's black and white. There are no, let's get 45% done and then reevaluate where we're at and talk about maybe some different rules to the game. No. They've got books this thick sitting on their shelves, CFR, regulations, this, you shall and you will. And it's cut and dry. And, you know, the contractors I work for bid a lot of that work because there's an advantage to understanding exactly what the rules of the game are going to be when you sign up for the job. And it's a level playing field because everybody you're competing against to get that work understands that the rules are the rules. And we say that we want contractors that are going to do a good job for this town and get the work done. And we're not going to have any more meter pit projects. We're not going to have any more Spring Avenue projects. We're not going to have any more disasters. We say that. If we mean that, then I think we ought to stick to the contract and keep the playing field level and make sure that the rules of the game are played by everybody the same way every time and that they're always followed. And I know that sounds merciless, but it's just, in my opinion, I think that actually provides a better contracting environment. Yeah, maybe it means you get less bids, but you're going to get bids from contractors that are going to be competent and capable and perform.
And that's, like I said, I appreciate your input, John. Like, I don't take it lightly. I mean, you and I've discussed numerous times how frustrating it is that when we put stuff out to bid, whether it's the airport or this, how high these bids are coming in at. You know, and there's a lot of headaches there. I guess the thing I struggle with is, you know, going back to what Ray said, is all these contracts are based in good faith. And like I said, and that's, I guess if
We're not doing anything that we didn't say we were going to do from day one. We are doing exactly what we said we were going to do before the contract was even signed. None of this is a surprise.
Yeah, and let's say they get all the water line in and they say, okay, we're gonna dig through the frost for the next month and do the tie-in. There's absolutely no way they can pave. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And so if there's absolutely no way they can pave, is that a fair deal, and are we gonna get a good project?
Well, we're going to get a good project because we have plans and specs that tie them to certain end results and specs. And so they have to meet compaction, they have to meet density, and they have to pass a water line test. So we're going to get that regardless. It's up to them whether they want to fight frost or not. That's, you know, we don't direct their work. We don't control their schedule. We don't tell them when they have to pave or when they can't pave. It's their work area. It's their contract. We don't interfere with it. They control their own destiny. We live by provisions of the contract, who's responsible for what and what the repercussions are if any one of us doesn't do what we're supposed to be doing.
If I may, this is Ray again. You know, as far as potential exposure to other things coming up in the future with it, I think the history of this project, from what I know, and granted, I have gaps in knowledge here. This contractor hasn't been submitting a bunch of change orders. And,
Right.
And even if they do, the owner has to sign off on them. You know, just because they submit them doesn't mean that you're going to agree to them. And as far as trying to backtrack and get money, for example, the bedding for the pipe and the like, you know, so you have the vegetative matter. The fact they didn't make a change order for that, they're precluded by contract to try to do that. When you have a change in condition, if you don't seek a change order within X number of days, and I don't remember what this contract provides specifically, but I'm sure there's a certain number of days, or you waive it. So they can't back into that. But going back to contractors and what they deal with. I can tell you, I've got a steel erector contract, and they also do the manufacturing. And we're in an airport project somewhere in this state. I'm not going to say where it is, but they were supposed to start the project a long time ago, and they could not, because the general contractor hadn't got some other things ready, and they were having other problems. And so that impacts their ability. And I'm not saying that's what's happening with this project, but I know for that contractor, he was expecting, when he bid the job, he was expecting a notice to proceed by such and such a date. He had other jobs, multiple jobs going on, where he built his schedule based on when they were supposed to proceed on these other projects. Those don't happen. And so when they're called on the job in this particular contract, they had 5 days to get there once they were called out. Okay, so you're throwing your men at that, but now these other projects that were delayed, they're coming on at the same time. So projects that were scheduled appropriately, all of a sudden you have 3 of them coming at you in a very short time period. And not only do you not have the manpower as a contractor to do it, but there aren't enough subcontractors out there now to go ahead and bolster your workforces to get that done. Again, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but I'm just saying things happen to where even when you're saying, okay, increase your manpower, why aren't you doing that? There are a lot of extraneous factors outside of that that could impact things. And so, to say, okay, when they bid Corps of Engineer jobs, you're going to get them done. Well, I've been around those jobs, and they tend to bid those things pretty damn high. And, so yeah, they will enforce that, but you go ahead and build that into your bids. What I'm telling you as a small entity is you don't have that kind of leeway like the Corps of Engineer does. And so the fairness factor really does blend in here more strongly than I think John is maybe given it credit for. And I think as a taxpayer, because I personally have looked at this from a taxpayer perspective, and I say, gosh, when some of these governmental entities that we've dealt with are taking a heavy-handed approach down the road, they're not getting the bids that they should get. They get one bid, and sometimes those are my clients that are bidding that, and I know their bids are really high because they know they can get it. And so you just, the fairness factor, especially in a small state like Wyoming, can come back and bite you. And so I think that the main factor I look at here from not only a legal perspective, but from a policy perspective, is the town putting itself at risk? The gentleman that said, this is about trust, and I agree with that. These things are always about trust. But you still have this contract that does give you the protection that you need. One, you're going to have a fair amount of liquidated damages, probably take care of those unforeseen circumstances you're talking about. What extra damages are there? You've already probably have a cushion. And even if you don't, you have contractual access to go further. And so where are you at on this thing? And again, I guess I have a bias in the sense that I represent contractors a lot. So I understand the problems that they have going into these kinds of things. Yeah, but I also have represented public entities and the like. And so I don't know, I like to think that I look at it from a 30,000-foot view perspective. And I just don't see where the town is exposed by not assessing liquidated damages just during the winter shutdown. You're going to get punitive damages on the other end of this project when they start in the spring. You've got the LDs accruing then as well. And again, if you're worried about when they're going to start, you can have both sides agree that this is going to be the start date in the spring where liquidated damages are going to accrue again. They're going to start accruing now, at that point, whether it's March 1st or whatever it would be. And then if they can't get there, well, that's a risk that they took when they didn't get it done. And you could build in some protection that way. So there are other ways to skin the cat. But anyway, with that, I'll be quiet.
And I guess the thing I'm looking at is we're arguing over $164,500. That's December 15th through May or March 20th that they provide in their deal. That's what the liquidated damage.
I'm not arguing over the money. Not one penny of the money. That's not what my argument is. My argument's the contract.
Yeah, and a contract can be amended.
In Caleb's email to Ron today, he stated in that email, as far as pay applications go, that they need to stick to the contract, that the town needs to stick to the contract on the pay applications.
Mhm.
Why would we, if that's what he's recommending on a specific item of the contract, why would we veer from that on aspects?
And I talked to Jane Ray about that. And so there was two things. I think Ron's issue was the watering. And
Doesn't matter.
the,
It doesn't matter what topic is being discussed. You can't have in the same conversation these guys sitting here go, we gotta follow the contract. And then in the next sentence go, we want to veer from the contract and cut off liquidated damages for the winter while we're not here.
well, we also did an amendment to the contract. I mean, that's changing the contract. That's what a change order is. If we decided to halt liquidated damages or anything, it's a change to the contract. There's still a contract that's enforceable.
Yeah.
And we've made a change to the contract. We added the Joint Powers Board to the contract for the purpose of pursuing the ARPA grant.
Let's do this. I think there's been a lot of good discussion. There's been a lot of good input, frankly. I think having Ray on the phone has been beneficial. Let's try a motion and get somewhere on this. Creed, do you want to phrase how you would entertain a motion and start us off?
But I would like to make one more comment. So when I came in to hear into the meeting, I'm pretty well a contract guy. When I look at, we're all talking about risk. And if I added up Creed's numbers correctly, we've already held out 85,000. Is that right?
Will be on December 15th.
Yeah. And because if the contract goes 6 weeks, that's another 73,500. Is that right?
Correct.
So we got 158,500 versus a projected cost to the town from TO of 63,000. The other 3,000 of plus 60 additional thousand. Is that what I heard?
Ballpark. So they budgeted 110. Josh said for all intents and purposes, just assume that we've used all of our budget. We're at 107 to date from what he could tell. Obviously there'll be some administrative tasks over the winter that they'll be doing, but he said ballpark, he assumed it'd be another $60,000.
So our potential risk right now, short of any litigation or anything, is call it 63,000, 158,000 by the end of the spring deal, which leaves us about 90,000 plus or minus of cushion. Is that right? Without holding any liquidated damages out for the rest of the winter. Is that right? And then Ray, if I understand you, there's other venues or other avenues in the contract for things that could come up. I would like to ask about any future litigation. How does that work normally? If I know it goes either way, it seems like in my history, but if we go to litigation, is each party responsible for their own costs?
Yeah, is that in venue, there's jurisdiction and venue provision in the contract where it be in the Second Judicial District Court. And then I'm gonna have to rely on Jane here. If there's a prevailing party provision in there, there isn't. Okay, so each party would be responsible for their own attorney's fees then. I personally like to see prevailing party provisions in there. It makes both sides negotiate a little harder to try to get it done without litigation. But this contract doesn't have a prevailing party provision. So each, long story short, yeah, each side's responsible for their own legal fees.
So the last question I have, and then I'll shut up. I'm a little bit confused on how liquidated damages are assessed. Is that actually a bank transaction that goes on, or is it an accounting deal?
It's an accounting.
So we just mark on a piece of paper, you owe us one day, and at the end of the job, we settle up. So
No.
we're not actually putting Lewis and Lewis's money in our bank account, or how does that work?
No, you should be. Again, you can pull it out of monies due on their contract. So you can pull it out of pay apps as well as out of retention. And I think you personally, as I understand it, there was only about $5,000 that had accrued in LDs at the time of pay app 2 on pay, and they were put on notice that you were going to be withholding liquidated damages on succeeding pay apps. So there's a pay app 3 out there. I don't know what the amount of liquidated damages are, but you legitimately can hold back the liquidated damages out of pay app 3 and go from there, and then on pay app 4 or whatever. But at the end of the day, you always try to hold out the liquidated damages out of the pay apps, the succeeding pay apps, as well as out of the retention if you have to. But under the contract, if that's not adequate, you can still go after them for the liquidated damages. You don't want to have to do that. I mean, you want to hold it out of money due them, but it's not just an accounting thing. You're holding that money back. That's money that you have in your account that you're not paying them at this time. So you would hold that through December 15th or whatever, you'd hold that out of the next pay app 3 and or 4. And then in the spring, you would be holding those liquidated damages out of those succeeding pay apps. And if that's inadequate, you'd hold us out of retention.
I believe, Ron, that the engineers should be tracking that. So TO should be tracking those days.
However, in the draft pay app 3 that I saw, there were no LDs withheld.
I didn't see him out of there either.
And I talked to Josh about it, and he's supposed to be getting Caleb tomorrow about that. I think to your point on that email, it talked about, withholdings and things of that sort had to be noticed. We gave written notice on November 11th that they would be withheld on pay app 3. So I expect Caleb and Josh will get together and work that out. So I guess, and John, you were saying, well, Creed, do you have a motion you'd like to hear? Before we get to that point, I would like to ask Chuck, Jerry, and Mike, what do you guys want to see? I mean, it's not lost on me that most of this council's gone. And this will be what you guys inherit with the Joint Powers Board, and what do you guys want to see, or what's your opinion on the best way to proceed forward? I don't want to leave you guys in a position where you're handcuffed on something you didn't want to see that this council did.
Me, I'm flip-flop. Both ways. Go one way, go the other way in my mind. But I'm more pushing toward remanding it. Because I think in the bitter end, if it goes to litigation for anything, it's gonna look like we acted in good faith more, and it will look better for us. Especially if we're not opening ourselves up, to any more damages or anything. If we're still fairly safe.
To go with option 1.
With option 1, yes.
Mike, your thoughts?
I can see both sides too. I hear John and all that, but I was in the big dirt moving business for 30 years, and I know the hurdles that you can run into. There's a plan. I looked at hundreds of mining engineered plans. There's never a mud hole. There's never a catastrophic. You'll enter the pit this day and exit the next day or a day. And, you just run into hurdles. So I can see their point also and what the attorney is saying. But I guess I'm undecided.
So you don't have your mind made up?
Not really. Have to think about it a little bit more, but I would more lean toward option one, I believe.
Chuck, what's your opinion?
Well, boy, I see both sides too. It's a tough situation, but you did sign a contract. It's not a punishment. Is how I look at it. It's an agreement. And they agreed to it, so I'm gonna lean to following the contract at this time. But, you know, there again, mayor doesn't have a vote unless it's a tie. You know, so that's where the tough decision might come in. But as the way I look at it right now, I have to kind of lean towards a contract, following the contract. And I've sat and visited with them guys direct. You and I've talked about it, and I've talked about it with John. We've talked about it, visited with Kathy a little bit about it. It's my biggest concern would be if we have to fight litigation over it. Because, you know what one side's gonna say, it's punitive. You know, you did it for a reason, just to save money on your contract. And I don't see it that way.
It's a tough situation for you guys and for us and for them. Like I say, and I still agree with a lot of what John says in the contract and all that. I don't know. Really, you know, it's I can see both sides of it.
Okay. Is there a motion on the table?
I make a motion to choose option number one and withhold or in accordance with what the lawyer said, to withhold or withdraw,
Suspend.
what,
Suspend.
suspend LDs over the winter suspension.
Motion, is there a second?
I'm gonna get a second with a comment. I was pretty adamant. I even sent an email earlier today that I didn't think we should give up our rights in the contract, but I changed my mind, I think, agreed. So I'm gonna make the second and apologize to the people I discussed this with earlier today. My decision is based on what the attorneys had to say and what was covered in this meeting. So I will second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion?
I can't help but reiterate my concern about us blindly adhering to the advice of our attorneys. And I would say that it's sound legal advice, but there are more factors and decisions that have to be made by those elected officials who are in charge of these things than simply what the attorney's opinion is. And their job is to keep us out of legal hot water. I get it. They've done a damn good job of that. But the safest decision isn't always the best or the most principled decision, in my opinion. So I'm sticking to my position. We have an agreement. It's eyes wide open going back to June. Everybody was on the exact same page. We're not doing anything other than exactly what we said we were going to do at the time. It says we do in the contract. That's how I'm voting.
Any other discussion? And poll the council, please.
No.
Kathy? Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay. Any other questions or concerns about Spring Ave shutdown? Yeah, we'll move back to our agenda. I believe we finished up with Valley Village childcare. Ray, Jane, thank you guys.
Thank
Moving on to the TAP project agreement. I know McCall, I saw an email from McCall that she couldn't make it. Touch base on
Yeah,
this. I didn't see the documentation coming.
I didn't see that email from the call out this afternoon, but as we've previously discussed, we applied for and were successful in receiving a CAP grant from YDOT for the purpose of pedestrian transportation corridor study. A little bit of history, we originally started the process for a grant to do a bike path, walking path between downtown and the grocery store ostensibly. And when we started down that process with YDOT, they said, you really aren't going to be successful in getting a construction grant. What we'd really like to see you guys do is go through the planning process, come up with a trails master plan, the pedestrian master plan and all that. And so, well, that's fine, because we didn't have that. We don't have $200,000 sitting around it to do a study and follow that process. And so they said, well, how about we help you get a grant to do the study? So Nicole did a tremendous amount of work on this. It's helpful. Long story short, we were awarded the grant to go ahead and perform the study and the plan. It is in the amount of up to 200 and something thousand, I think. Have that handy? Up to total federal award up to $200,000. So as I understand the process, we will get with YDOT. There will be a solicitation process to identify a consultant to do the planning. And over the next year, we'll put together a plan, identify what different pedestrian transportation needs we have. Things that were discussed were, of course, that walking path or bike path, some sort of way to connect pedestrians from downtown sidewalk system to the grocery store and forest areas. But then also either bike lanes or some sort of identified pedestrian path that runs up Elm going to the high school to connect the community center to the middle school to the high school in a more safe manner than walking along the edge of the asphalt. And so to see what other paths and sidewalks and things come as a part of that study will be really interesting to see, but I think it'll be a great thing for the town. So if there is any questions, I can try to speak to it, although I'm not intimately familiar with this grant document. I will make the motion that we allow the mayor to sign it and that we accept the grant and start the process.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the PVCC agreement. This is something Danny drafted. I emailed out 3 weeks ago, had no input from anyone on the council. So I've given, I think they had 3 or 4 questions on there. I provided my input to them. And so you see the agreement, the operating agreement in front of you with what my opinion was of the questions that the attorneys had. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to review it or not, but it's something to be reviewed. Just to kind of bring everyone up to speed on what this is about. I believe the original operating agreement was 2005 for the PVCC. And needed to be updated to a point. There was questions about are the PVC or the PVCC employees of the town or of the community center joint powers board. And there was just a number of things that we needed to get outlined. That what is the town's responsibilities? What is their responsibilities? Has everyone had a chance to review that?
I read through it, but I had trouble making changes on it. I couldn't see much difference between the 2005 version. There were two sections in yellow on the thing you sent me, or three, but I didn't see any changes between those. It looked like comments from somebody, but not changes.
And that was kind of my question was, did this go before the community center, but Powers Board, and are they?
No, not yet. It's one of those, I think the thought was get the agreement that we're good with it and then send it to them. And if they have things they want to mark up.
I think the motion that we sent it to them then.
I'll second.
Any discussion, just for your clarification, Ron, on what the questions were under the first highlighted part was just before midway down the first page, it said, whereas the board shall be responsible to the town regarding overall operations of said community center and programming. Jane Patrick's question was, will the recreation director of town have any control in the community center for programming? As far as it can be, my response was not that I'm aware of on the community center side. In the gym, she coordinates stuff in the gym with them. She's got a good working relationship, but as far as overall programming, I didn't think that the rec director, that was in their purview per se.
Yeah, so my question was, it's the same verbiage as the 2005 edition. It's just got questions in there. Is that?
So the highlighted deals were the questions from the attorney.
And then, but nothing's changed between this and the 2005 that I could tell.
Well, clarified a payroll issue, isn't that correct? That's
So
why we started this, right?
Yes, and that was the main issue, was it was a payroll issue. And we were, I believe, treating them like they were town employees to a point, when they weren't, and this clears that up.
Oh.
It states in there that it's that the employees that work for the community center are the employees of the community center joint powers board. So.
But at least we'll continue to handle the
Payroll. So.
I don't think it changes anything structurally.
No. So, have a motion and a second, all in favor? Okay, next up is the Platte Valley Aquatic Center. Believe you all saw Jane's email regarding the lease on that. I know she's been in contact with Nick regarding her concerns on the lease that she outlined in her email to us. Sound like they had a good conversation and, you know, she reserved the right to make some minor edits, you know, to the lease, but those were some of the issues she had. Her question to me was, you know, is there any other concerns that the council had? I saw an email this afternoon when I was on the road, from John, but I don't know if there's any.
Yeah,
What your guys' concerns were?
my questions were just. Ron brought up a really good point about force majeure. And then the other comments that were outlined in Jane's December 2nd email, you know, there's about a dozen of them. In minor things, but I think. Legitimate comments for sure. Have those been incorporated into the document? Or are those still sitting on the?
I think they're-
not even email and need to get it on.
I think she maybe sent him an email and had minor discussions, but they haven't. He hasn't updated the lease to my knowledge yet.
Okay, so that would be something that Nick would do.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, all right. Well, with that said, I think this is probably not at a point to where it can be approved. Yeah, I think let them hash that out. Jane and Nick, or let Nick have at it, and if he's got anything he wants to talk to Jane about, allow him to do so. And then in the meantime, Jane can look into your force majeure question. But from a process standpoint, I think Ron and I talked about this a little bit about kind of the cart and the horse, you know. There's not as far as I can tell, a complete consensus that this project is in fact feasible. And so are we, by granting a ground lease, putting the cart before the horse and giving that lease to something that may or may not come to fruition. The way I read it, and just my take on it. The way I read it is this would be kind of the first cornerstone that would allow Nick to then continue down his process in terms of fundraising. And without something in writing from the town that says this land is in fact, and can be designated for your use, he has a harder time moving forward. And so I don't see it as putting the cart before the horse, although I understand the sensitivity to that maybe we're moving a little too quick. The thing that it does say in here, as far as I understand it, is that if within 12 months they don't proceed, that the whole thing evaporates, it just reverts, right? And so I think that's an important component to this, and it makes sense to me, right? Let's provide project assurance that the town is willing to designate the land. And then let them continue through their fundraising process, and if at the end of the day, they can't make it pencil, I would trust that they'll pull the e-brake on their own project and not proceed. But maybe we need to have some further conversations about what exit ramps or at what points do they make those kinds of decisions. If they don't have a certain amount of funding by some date or something like that. Just for that assurance that we're not getting the cart too far out in. But in concept, I like it personally. As I said at a prior meeting, I think, it's really encouraging to see people putting forth efforts to do things to drive positive improvements to the community, whether it's that CAPS grant or something major like this. I think it's really encouraging. I want to try to work on our end to support those community projects to happen. So long way of saying, I think it probably needs a little more work from a legal standpoint, but let's keep going.
I've already talked too much tonight, but my concern was
Well, no, you got nothing on me, buddy.
my concern with signing the lease right now is agreed they came in. I admire the amount of work those guys put in on that. They really are busting their tail to try to bring something nice to the community. But when they gave their presentation in front of the council, there was a glaring issue with their revenue versus their operating costs. And since then, we haven't seen any updates or any idea of what the final deal looks like. And so my question, and I guess it would be for Jane if she's got some more work to do on this, is we're signing a lease without any, and it's actually more of like a contract the way it reads, without any idea of what the final product's going to look like. So we could sign away a 99-year lease for a kiddie pool. I don't know. Looking at what the lease agreement says, I don't know what the finish line is. And so I question what we're signing up for. And I've considered a way around it of set the property aside, give them some sort of a contract that gives them first right of refusal. And that should be enough for a bank to say if the property is theirs, if they want it. And without signing the lease, but I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if any of that makes any sense at all. But you know what I'm saying? It's like we're signing up for a pig in a poke. And they could go up there and pour a 2-inch slab and put a kiddie pool on it and satisfy the terms of that agreement, as far as I can tell.
Great point.
Yeah, and so that's my only
I trust Nick's vision.
I do too. I love his vision. It was that thing was beautiful.
That's what they are going to do. If that was all they could afford to do, they wouldn't just go do that. However, it's a great point. Great.
Well, I guess my concerns are, I'm all for the project, and it's what's the rec department going to look like? A lot of what they're basing their numbers on is assuming that the town's gonna help fund them and that they're gonna take over rec. And like I said, to have a unelected board, you know, have control over that portion of the town. I've got little kids. I know a couple years ago, we wanted to see a change in the basketball program and a bunch of parents got together and did it. And I guess that's a concern I have. You know, anytime that someone that's not elected is representing the people, you know, and I guess that's a concern I have. And like I said, I love the vision. I love all the work they put into it, but that's still a reservation for me is, you know, that, you know, from what was presented is that the town would give over the rec department to them and then pay them to run the rec department. And I said, I think the facility would be great, but that's my biggest concern. So.
And stand right with you on that. Just to clarify though, that commitment wouldn't be codified in the lease.
No,
Right, that would be a completely different conversation that the new council will be having about budget workshops, and appropriation of funds. But that's, you know, well taken for sure.
Well, I think there's a lot of questions unanswered, you know, so unanswered questions. I agree with what Ron said. I don't want to sign a contract, but a letter of intent, something like that. I don't have a problem with, that's my opinion. I don't have a problem with something like that.
I have concerns also during the entire rec board or rec department.
and
Baseball and everything else.
I guess that's where I'm at. Like I said, I know that's not part of the ground lease, but it was, oh, hey, we want to build this pool in order to staff and operate it, you know, which is a big part of what their feasibility study. I have no doubt Nick can probably go out and fundraise and get the money to build a pool. Like I said, it's quarter of that operating budget was town funds and, oh yeah, and what you're gonna get in return is we'll run the rec department for you and we'll just absorb all that. And I guess that's, I know it's not part of the lease, but that's part of their plan right now. And like I said, the only way I see that not happening is if Nick can fundraise his butt off and get big enough endowment to operate the thing where there are no need for additional funds.
I think it's a great idea if they can get everything done.
So at the end of the day, if we're hesitant to sign the lease, I think at least we could ask Jane if they don't want to put a roadblock in Nick's way of if he's in the middle of fundraising and everything, if he can pull it off, it'll be a miracle for the town and if he gets something great. But I don't want to put a roadblock in front of it. But I think he does need some sort of assurance that if he can get the money together, that there's going to be at least some property from the town. So I don't know how to do that legally. Maybe that's something Jane could figure out without signing a 32-page lease.
Well, and I think that's
Memorandum of understanding.
Yeah.
something like that. And I think she was gonna get with Nick and try to hammer out the rest of the lease, maybe to try to answer some of those questions.
Yeah.
So.
And on the rec side of things, I mean, what happen further down the road, of course, but one of the things I thought about is maybe what it ends up actually looking like is some sort of a hybrid. I mean, he talked about trying to have, some buy-in from different partners, the school district. Maybe the town really ends up kind of being more like that, where we're committing a certain amount of money. I mean, we're not gonna have the pool. Probably, I would assume, right? And so there is gonna be some funds available, so maybe it's a hybrid version where we're contributing a certain amount of funds to help maintain and operate the facility. We get right to use it for programs and water aerobics and all those things.
Yeah.
But it's still done by the town's rec program, and the rec director is still accountable to the council and thereby to the voters. Maybe that's how it all ends up looking like, I don't know. Turning the whole thing over, yeah, it does kind of have some hair on it.
Where are you planning on putting it? What lot?
It's up above the library, directly east of the high school. So that
Kind of where the old water tower gravel pit is.
It's a good idea and everybody's for it.
Would it be better by the hot springs?
they did a study, And they did a community survey. And so they had. Who we got?
Hey, Marie.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're talking pools. You might mute.
Okay.
I was like, maybe that's Nick, and how about that? Yeah, they evaluated a site over there. They'd evaluated, I think, 4 or 5 sites total.
I think one of the concerns over there that they had was you're in a residential community. Obviously, it'd be great right next to the hot pool. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why to put it over there. This would be between both schools. You know, I think that was one of their big pushes too from their study. But they did evaluate that location.
If the high school has a, aquatics program in gym, then it's right there. They can just walk right to it and things like that. And the traffic
Makes sense that way.
It's not a good arterial route to get back to that other spot, so.
Well, we'll see what Jane and Nick get worked out on the lease. And like I said, maybe they have something or MOU for the council for the next meeting. Next
Do
up,
you recommend that? You wanna recommend that? That we prepare an MOU? I think. Right on the money on, I mean. Not throw up a roadblock, but. Still.
Yeah.
Not too, wait for a little more facts to come in, kind of thing,
Yeah, I don't know what vehicle to use, but I think that there's got to be something out there where at least we give them assurance that if
If it's a go.
if it's viable, that we would stand behind it with some resources.
And I think that's consistent with how you guys feel too, right? That
Yeah,
assuming all the other details can get hashed out, like, yeah.
yeah, no, I feel how you guys do, don't hold the project up if there's anything we can do, but I'm not ready to sign a lease.
Yeah.
Would you mind asking Jane if an MOU is the
yep.
thing, or what she'd recommend, and that way we can give them something?
Yep. I'll talk to her about it tomorrow.
Thanks.
Yeah. Moving on to the work order for the Stevens project. This work order 22-02C. Just with the, you guys can read through it. This is regarding, I think budget wise, we were a touch over, and Josh asked me to sign a work order just to cover overlaps on the additional costs of the ground proposals from that we presented to them.
Make a motion that the additional $1,500 order 2202C PO engineering.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, tonight is liquor license renewal.
I need one.
So
We're gonna do a little due diligence before we do this.
So, Marie, if you're there, you can, if you would unmute, we're just getting ready to start liquor license renewal.
Okay.
So first up is the liquor license renewal for Bella's Bistro. I believe they are renewing a bar and grill license. Marie, have they satisfied all the stuff they need to with the state?
They have.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up is the liquor license renewal for Valley Liquor. This is a retail liquor license. Marie, are they in good standing with the state?
Yes, they are.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there a motion to renew the liquor license for the Lazy River Cantina? It's a retail liquor license.
Retail?
Yeah, Marie, is there any, is Lazy River Cantina in good standing with the state?
They are.
Is there a motion to renew that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion? Let's see here for the, is there certain? Saratoga Resort and Spa has a retail liquor license. Marie, are they in good standing with the state?
They are.
Is there a motion to renew their retail liquor license?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up is the renewal of the Rustic Bars retail liquor license. Marie, are they in good standing with the state?
They are.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to, or next up is Hotel Wolf for a retail liquor license. Marie, are they in good standing with the state?
They are.
Okay. Is there a motion to renew their retail liquor license? All in favor?
Abstain.
Next up is JW Hugus. Marie, are they in good standing with the state?
They are.
Okay, it looks like they have a restaurant liquor license. There is there a motion to renew the restaurant license?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up is American Legion Post 54's limited retail license. Marie's the American Legion in good standing with the state?
They are. They are. Can you hear me?
Assume they're in good standing.
They are. Can you hear me?
There you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's catastrophe about to be?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is Firewater Public House, for a restaurant liquor license. Marie, are they in good standing with the state?
They are.
Is there a motion to renew their restaurant liquor license?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, last up is the Snowy Mountain Brewery. Looks like they submitted $1,500 for a microbrewery permit, and we need to submit a $1,500 reimbursement to International Resorts because the microbrewery permit is held in conjunction with the retail liquor license. The only retail license fee shall be assessed. Is the Snowy Mountain Brewery in good standing, Marie?
Yes, they are.
Okay, is there a motion to renew their microbrewery license?
Motion.
Oh,
Second.
okay.
Discussion?
Motion to refile the agreement.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up is police department.
I'm gonna get council approval so that we can close out our 2020 SHSP grant. That when we originally did the grant, it was budgeted for some radio equipment. They were able to cut us some discounts on some of that stuff. So Tyler was going through there and there was still some money in there, and he got these 3 items that we'd like to purchase so we can use up the last of that grant money and close that grant out. It's one of them's some of those the part number stuff. This some of it's for, we got to change out the antennas on the couple of vehicles, the little band antennas we have. Have to be updated. There's I think an encryptor, and the other one is to finish off the repeater project. I think it was roughly around $12,000 that was left on that grant.
So is this one where you
This is a
spend it and you submit
Yeah, it's 100%.
reimbursement for 100%?
So what are the items, just to clarify? We've got Motorola quote for
One of those in there is, I believe, for to finish up that repeater project.
Comtech for the repeaters.
Yep.
5,584. There's a Motorola and another Comtech.
Total is $10,737.40 on those 3.
And that stuff for the APX aerials is flash programming, I believe, for And then the Bluetooth radio headsets for the handhelds.
Will
And then
the grant cover all this?
Yeah,
It's from 2020.
we have to close it out. I've run into that with those grants before, just like the school resource officer, I was able to pull money off it 3 years after the grant was up till we had that used, but Tyler got an email. They want to close it out.
Is this all plug and play stuff or is there gonna be
Some
some
of it's programming
installation costs that? Besides those,
on that.
is that all covered in these proposals? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the invoices totaling $10,737.40 to close out the 2020 SHSP grant.
Discussion,
Discussion?
no cost to the town, 100% reimbursement.
We send them the invoice and then they pay for it.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
I,
Anything else, chief?
No, other than we had the gas leak yesterday morning up there. Chief Wallace and I had some concerns about, everybody just standing there watching, because we went through this from Black Hills. He was gonna try to do some checking and see if they could somehow maybe change that a little bit. We stood there 40 minutes and watched that gas main just sit there, after we got the people out of the house. It seems, the citizens want action, but there's not much we can do with it. We just tell them, we just gotta wait.
Yeah, and I was gonna touch on that. Departments, we'll move on to fire department too. Had a couple calls, couple structure fires, outside of town. That we responded to, and then there was a call yesterday for a gas leak in the alley, I think it was on Saratoga Ave.
Yeah, 900 block.
100 block Saratoga. Chief Walser called me too. I was on a conference call, so I couldn't respond to it, but if you recall, I think when this council was seated back a year and a half ago or so, Black Hills came and showed up and assured us that they would do better and be better. And I don't know if it's statute or what, that they have within an hour to respond. I think Chief Walser reached out to a number of the individuals that were here that night at that meeting. And all but one of those people are not in the same position anymore. And so he talked to me, and I think he reached out to Chuck to talk about, maybe we invite him back down here. I don't know what recourse there would be, but I know from the firefighter side, when you hear a gas leak, it's really hard to respond when you're just gonna go stand there for a couple hours on a call. And like I said, I was busy. I was on a conference call when the call came in, so I couldn't respond. And I don't know how many times they paged it, but we had 2 guys show up. And like I said, for guys that are out working and whatnot, a lot of the lawyers in town have been very gracious, to allow them to respond to fires and all that. But it's getting to the point where, if you hear a gas leak, it's hard to get guys to show up knowing that they might be there for a couple hours, and we haven't seen any improved response times or anything like that from Black Hills. So I think that's something Chief's gonna want to talk to Chuck, about maybe trying to bring them down next year and seeing if we can get maybe better resolution.
It's my understanding, did you guys meet with them once?
Yeah, we met with them. I think it was shortly after.
More than once?
Yeah.
Since I've been on the council, before your term, prior to that, when I was council at the fire department, we had a meeting as well. And my recommendation would be we write a letter to the public service. That's how we got their attention before. So,
Okay,
That whole situation is bad, like Mom's Kitchen, it's waited, over almost 2 hours. They show up, they handed, was it you or Wallace or the Crippers? They had to fog you.
Yeah, they had us go plug it. And their deal is that I think their local techs can't go into a hot zone. It's a cool zone. They can go in and shut it off if that's the valve. But if it's a hot zone, they have to have a response team come, and the nearest one, I guess, is Rollins. But I know it's been the local guy that's came the last couple times.
But Wallace explained to me.
You know, and so I know that's from the fire department standpoint, that's a extreme frustration, you know. There was the one over here on Rochester last summer, and shoot, we had to evacuate a block and a half or something. You know, and then we stood there and waited, and the response team never showed up, and their tech ended up turning off. So, like I said, it's the concern is like with Carbon Power, you know, if the power line was down, they wouldn't have the fire department go up and throw breakers, you know, throw fuses. So, like I said, and they've advised us, oh, don't touch it, you know, just stay there and hold a safe perimeter.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when it's volunteers, I mean, it's hard to get guys that say they're going to just blow out of their job for 3 hours to go sit on a call and babysit it for them to show up. So that's the biggest concern. Like I said, we've had a couple structure fires. Currently the roster is still at 32 volunteers, so we're full there. We're meeting once a month for business meeting and training once a month through the end of the year, and then we'll resume weekly trainings. The only other thing we're working on right now of note is our food drive. And I believe, I need to check with Tate, I believe if anyone has donations, if they could drop it off at the school or here at town hall. I believe we are accepting donations through the 14th, and then we'll be distributing those on the 21st of the month. And I believe the list this year, there's about 45 families and older folks that we deliver to. So that's all I had for fire. Rec department.
Hey, before we, can I make a motion that we send a letter to the Public Service Commission with signatures from the mayor, chief of police, and fire chief?
Second that.
Wait your turn. That says just really, we're requesting that Public Service Commission look into the response times by Black Hills Energy to Saratoga and surrounding area and get back to us with resolution. I think it needs to say much more than that.
Can you pull a copy of your other letter? Kind of write it the same way?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't even remember what that, I think I called them. I think I called
That's, you called them.
Yeah,
Oh, did you?
yeah. So. And that lit a fire pretty quick underneath Black Hills.
Yeah.
So, but it might be even better if you have a town on the town letterhead with the mayor, the fire chief, and the chief of police.
Okay, yeah, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, rec department.
All right, I'm gonna start with action items tonight. Inside the council packet, I have the town equipment purchase summary. And I'm just requesting approval from the council to move forward on purchasing some new equipment for our town gym. We have in the current budget $10,000 for equipment to purchase. So at this time, I would like to request from the council to purchase 2 treadmills and the rowing machine. As you can see from the quotes, I got 3 different quotes from 3 different locations. Colorado Cardio came in at the lowest quote for $5,372, which includes shipping and installation. With their installation, that will also include a 1-year warranty on parts. So, you know, this is going to be the start of the replacing all the current equipment we have in our facility. It's a minimum of 6 years old, and most of it is 10+ years old from purchase and is visibly out of date. We currently have 2 treadmills in our gym, both of which I have not found purchase dates for. The Life Fitness 9,500 hour treadmill currently has a sticking belt, which so now that one is out of order for our current members. And our Precor treadmill is also out of date. It's not a commercial treadmill, and it's missing a handle for the heart rate monitor. not a safety concern, so I haven't put it out of order. It's just broken and it appears broken, so. As I said, this will come out of our budget line item for gym equipment, which currently has a balance of $10,000. Because no amount from this line item has been spent. The discussion in our budget session was settled on a new treadmill and elliptical. The police department donated the elliptical from their department. So I have no need for a new elliptical, so I'd like to get 2 new treadmills instead, so. As far as my comments, for the director comments, Colorado Cardio is the only company that returned my phone calls to get an exact amount of the equipment, the installation, and the delivery. I reached out to the company in Cheyenne that also used Colorado Cardio, and they spoke very highly of the experience and had no complaints working with them, designing a new small gym for an office. I would like to have this equipment installed prior to the 1st of January, as all of my memberships for the current year expire December 31st, and it would help build memberships if we could advertise the new equipment. So I'd like council to have a motion of approving one of my quotes.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase request for new treadmills. Relish.
All in favor?
This is one that we still don't have a clear policy on, I guess, right now. I have 2 pool employees who would like to move over to open gym supervisors. So I know I need to have the Mayor James sign a personnel action form to have them cross over to the rec department. And I would just request the council's permission to allow Mayor James to sign those personnel action forms.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Right, on to the director's report. For the gym, currently our hours of operation have not changed, will not change. And our fitness classes will be going as scheduled through the end of the month. We do take, or the fitness instructors all request to take Christmas through New Year's off, so we will not have fitness classes offered the last week. In trade of that, all fitness classes the first week of January will be free of charge. So people can come and check out the classes and meet the instructors. All of our memberships will expire at the end of this year, so I'm asking current members and new members to sign up. You will receive discounts through January 6th, early sign up. And we have other discounts that are applied for volunteer firemen, town employees, teachers, coaches. We have pickleball new to our schedule. We currently have it on the schedule Mondays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and we're working on an evening time that will accommodate some of the active participants that we have. Middle school girls basketball will wrap up this week, and middle school boys basketball will start Monday, the 12th. At the gym this weekend, we will host the JV games for the Carbon County Classic Tournament for the high school teams, both Friday and Saturday. And our open gym hours are still Monday and Wednesday for volleyball and Tuesday and Thursday for basketball. Youth activities, we have had the movie date planned for December 20th, but we are changing that date to the 21st due to conflicts with basketball practice and the town council meeting. So we will have the gym open at 12:30 for the showing of the movie Elf, which will start at 1 o'clock. Popcorn and water will be provided by the rec department. Public is invited free of charge. Please bring pillows, chairs, sleeping bags for the show. The grants that we have out, I sent in the first quarter reimbursement for the Carbon County School District number 2 open gym supervisors grant totaling $1,941. So we should be expecting a check in for that after their board meeting, which is December 14th. And I sent in the Fall Festival reimbursement to the Carbon County Visitors Council for a total of $1,373.45. Their board meets on December 21st for approval on that reimbursement. At the Recreation Commission Board meeting last night, we discussed the Kiwanis Ice Skating Rink Kickoff Party. The Rec Department will be at the kickoff party, and we will be in charge of a hot chocolate table from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. on December 17th. And our next meeting for the Recreation Commission is different from what's posted in the agenda, but it is Monday, January 9th at 6 p.m. at the town hall.
Thanks, Sarah. Moving on to Department of Public Works. So the one agenda item we had on here was, I think Chuck and Ron had talked to Ron a little bit about it. They talked to me too about it. They would like to purchase 100 tons of gravel and 100 tons of road base to have in stock. We've had a number of water leaks that they've had to fix over the last couple weeks that have kind of depleted our stockpile. And I believe I think the road base was $20 per ton and the gravel was $17 a ton. Those are approximate. So I'd ask the council for a motion to approve purchasing 100 tons of road base and 100 ton of gravel.
What's the difference? What's gravel? What do you call it, gravel?
Gravel would be more like a bedding material, so it'd be.
Yeah, I think it was for bedding.
A lot more well graded, probably.
Okay.
3/4, something like that, and then the road base is gonna have more fines and it would be more of a top surface.
Use the gravel around the pipes and fittings and all that. That's what you bed in.
Budgeted.
And the road base is for the surface just.
Well, and I understand that part, but I've never referred to that way as gravel and road base.
All right, I make a motion.
You have fine,
Well, there's different gravel, different size gravel. Sure.
It's like small rocks.
Just clean rock.
It's a clean rock.
It's a clean rock. Okay.
It's like
Gravel. Gravel material like that.
Okay. Just
Pages.
Ron made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
gravel.
On favor?
Aye.
Ron, if you got something to.
Yeah, I have a couple other things from the department. I think I said before, Chuck will be taking the last of this year's tests tomorrow. And taking them to Casper for FedEx and submittal. They have to be, I think, overnighted there. There's some issues, some communication issues between the well and the water department down here, and John's troubleshooting him Chuck is troubleshooting him right now. But he may have to call in, I think it's Timberline, is that the name of the company? To troubleshoot him, and that may include replacing some equipment. I told John I would bring it up in the meeting and get permission from him to proceed as needed to make sure that the
Which skater was it?
I don't know which one it was. I wasn't down there with him where he could point to the skaters or anything, but there are definitely communication. He was there till midnight last night getting the well starting it again because they're not communicating. So I guess the motion would be to troubleshoot and proceed as necessary to include calling Timberline.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
They finished, you were talking about water leaks. They had just finished today repairing the water leak on River Street, right on this side of the Hugus ditch. And they had put the temporary patches in it. And they were cleaning up the street when I left there.
Ron, was that just for information for me to take to a joint powers board meeting? Was that leak on the transmission line that goes up the hill, or is that on the service?
It was the original leak was on a 4-inch line that teed off and went over to the hobo pool. But they had a lot of trouble. That's the second leak in that area in the last 2 weeks. And all of those valves are so corroded that whenever they go in and try to do any repairs to the valves, they fall apart in their hands. So on that particular leak, they removed the valve and put a 4-way in to resolve the issue down there. But that kind of go think it says a lot about getting started on the water line repairs around town, because we're starting to have some real issues with maintenance. As I reported earlier, we're good on chemicals on for the water treatment plant, the chlorine and the sodium bisulfite up until February at the water treatment, and then at the sewer, and we have enough chemicals at the wells to last us until April. And then we talked about the snow removal equipment, and everything seems to be running fine, and we don't have near the maintenance issues we had last year. I think they did quite a bit of work to the snow removal equipment over the summer, so I think we're in pretty good shape, knock on wood.
So is their money budgeted to get on through the year for chemicals?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's budgeted through the end of the
Fiscal year, so it's budgeted through the end of June.
Okay.
That's, and we, when we budgeted, we did put in, I think it was a 10% inflation cost on it, and John Winters had called around to get current pricing and all that, so.
I was just saying, he was reading out how much they had on hand.
Some of those chemicals have increased 200 to 300% just since COVID and all that other stuff started. So John he did well in projecting an increased budget. All right, that's all I have for you.
Okay. Moving on to report from boards, commissions, community center, joint powers board.
Anything to report from last session? Next meeting is December 12th, 4:30 at PDCC.
Okay, would you board it's the operating agreement and that's it for review? They're good with it if they want to sign it and bring it back to council.
Sure.
And if they have any changes or issues, let me know and I'll take that to Jane and have her review it.
Okay.
Yeah, water and sewer joint powers board.
No update since our last meeting. Next joint powers board meeting is December 14th, Wednesday, 6 p.m. at the PVCC.
Okay. Next up's planning commission, nothing to report since our last meeting. Our next meeting, there will be public hearing for 2 different variances at 5:30. And our next meeting is on December 13th here at Town Hall at 5:30. Saratoga Airport Advisory Board.
What are the natures of the
One is to allow an accessory building shed. Essentially, it's the equipment shed at Woodsfield. And that'd be in a front yard, which is why we're pursuing a variance there. The other one is on the corner of Bridge and whatever it is, just across the bridge there for the green building. To allow what they're wanting to do is put a foundation and remodel the inside of that building. And it's considered a non-conforming use right now as it sits on the corner of on the corner of an intersection. So it's to allow them to have that building to remain in the same location. They're essentially just going to lift it, put in a foundation. their question was originally, do they need a variance to do that? And there was a number of items in the nonconformities clauses that they were going to break that to where they would have to have a variance in order to move forward with that. One was cost of the project exceeded, I think it was 50% of assessed value. The other one was that corner lot became an issue if they were going to be doing a remodel or whatnot to the property. So essentially to raise that building and put a foundation in it. Essentially keeping it in the same location. Saratoga Airport Advisory Board.
Okay, we have Tively Field entrance road for Lewis and Lewis of pay request number 3. It says 100% completion. I did talk to Larry DeAndre and he is happy with the punch list items being complete. I guess my only question, and since you guys are here, it says to relocate the plaque and cannon monument and relocate signs, but those were put in storage. Is that correct?
You said signs
Mm-hmm.
and they're relocated.
The way they were. Okay, so what about the plaque and the cannon monument?
Located on the northwest entrance,
They were. Okay,
where in the plaque. I guess we're still in stuff. That's in storage.
plaques in storage. Okay. So I guess I just need a motion to pay the Lewis and Lewis pay request of $24,143.30 to complete the project.
Does that include the release of retention and substantial completion?
I think that they did do all that.
Yeah, maybe. If,
I don't think that. This payout, it's just a progress payment.
it's just a pay app right now. We
Yeah.
haven't submitted for the final.
The final will be a change order item and then the retainage.
Okay, well, I make a motion that we process pay request number 3 for Lewis and Lewis.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And then this was just brought to my attention. I'm not sure about this one because I thought that stripe painting was complete with the seal coat mark way back in October. Did we pay this already, Georgia?
I don't believe so. I'm not sure what you're looking at. Here, let me take a look here.
So what Dave's email said, I apologize, I was mistaken. I thought the final payment for the seal coat project had been paid by YDOT. We were having some issues with the numbers in Black Cat, but I expect to have it resolved soon. We will then submit the final RFR, so it should come to you for signature soon. The invoices involved are attached. Following the processing of this RFR, the seal coat project will receive notification of this from YDOT also. For information, the final closeout report has been approved, and as soon as issue mentioned above is resolved, we'll upload it to Black Cat as well.
Is that 14,388.50?
Yes.
Have a purchase requisition for it, but no, it has not been paid yet. This is the authorization to pay.
Okay, so it's not in Black Cat yet then?
Nope.
Okay, so we don't need anything approval wise for that yet. So it hasn't not been uploaded as.
Yeah, all he said was,
He's just having trouble.
yeah, I think they're having trouble getting it up. So it'd probably need motion to sign the request for reimbursement for the seal coat project.
Okay. So this was occurred in October. It's the straight stripe painting, which did occur and they did it properly, so. And it's request for 100% reimbursement from YDOT. An amount of $14,388.50.
Is there a motion?
Yeah. Motion.
For second.
Second.
All in favor?
Next meeting is December 12th at 3:30. We did not have a quorum last time, so I have nothing to report.
Zero. Moving on to swims.
So for Schwimm's, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I am boarding right now on my plane, so I might mute you if they start talking. But on October 31st, Schwimm's received a notice from the Wyoming Hospital Association. And the notice stated that Schwimm's was eligible to receive sustainability funds to address staff retention per ARPA. And it was made by the Wyoming legislature. And so a total of $5 million was appropriated to stabilize EMS in Wyoming. The intent of the funds is to provide direct payments to current EMS staff and to enhance recruitment efforts via sign-on bonuses. And so in all the cases, each dollar must go directly to staff that provide frontline patient care. The sustainability funding cannot be used for any other purpose, and we need to spend it before the end of the year. Any dollars that haven't been spent must be returned to the state. So Schwimm's is eligible for $154,179. So what we had done is we adopted a weighted system that counted for years of service, on-call hours, certification level, and attendance at community events and trainings. And so due to the unforeseen payroll tax expense, the board elected to only use $112,000 and use the money budgeted for incentive bonuses that normally occurs at the end of our fiscal year. And so we intend on returning over $40,000 back to the state. So any staff member that elects to receive the portion of the bonus, which is voluntary, is asked to sign an agreement that they would continue to volunteer for at least 1 year and maintain at least 30 hours of on-call or complete 1 transport per month and have an active participation in community events and training. And so that letter is included in there. And so I wanted to explain all that in case you did hear that Schwimm's is, I guess, basically giving away money. It's not necessarily true, but it is kind of true. So
That sounds exactly.
I'm sorry.
I know you're bored, but can you just give us a sense of the $110,000 that's going to get kicked out in the next 2-3 weeks? How many people does that being distributed over? And maybe a range of, somebody's getting 10 grand, somebody's getting.
So
what's the
currently all of the volunteers and active employees are receiving the bonus. We have some employees that are receiving up to, I believe, $8,000. And then we have some that have just signed on with Schwimm's that will be receiving $500. I am not taking part of this at all. So that's something to note. But all of our active volunteers are all receiving something. So
Is that all
not
you had?
yes, that is all I have. And I have to get on my plane right now.
Okay. Travel safe. Swimm's next meeting will be on December 19th at 6 o'clock at the Saratoga Ambulance Barn. Moving on to new business.
no vote required on this?
Rodeo. Oh, any new business? The motion to enter executive session.
I make a motion to enter executive session to discuss personnel and matters of litigation in accordance with Wyoming statute 16-4-405A 2 and 3.
Is there a second? Gary, Mike, Chuck, did you guys join us?
There you go.
There a motion to exit executive session.
The exit working session. After open session, you feel the most executive session.
There's a second. All in favor? Is there any further business?
Workshop.
No. Next week, John's busy Wednesday night. I got something Tuesday night, or we can do earlier or later. Other than that, my schedule's wide open. What works good for you guys?
What is it for?
Anytime before the.
Or we could do. I can do later this week too. My thought would be is if we're gonna.
I can't make it through.
Oh,
This week.
till next week, you're gone the rest of this week. Yeah.
What could you say the days again?
So it probably needs to be through the 12th through the 16th. I would think we'd want to get that.
On both Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights.
You guys available Monday night?
Next Monday.
Monday night I can do, but after joint power, so like 5.
Middle of the week.
Until middle of the week. Do we want to shoot for a Friday? Or do you guys want to shoot that next week? My thought would be have the workshop, fine tune what the job description is, get it to the attorney and to have her review it. And then at the next council meeting, we're ready to put it out.
Can we do anything during the day?
I'm wide open.
I think, guys, I'm wide open until the.
When are you leaving?
Cody coming over next week.
Okay. Are you leaving tomorrow or tomorrow?
Everything comes in.
Okay.
I'm flexible, whatever works for everyone else works for me.
And like I said, if we have to do it after the council meeting the following week, I'm fine with that. Or if later in the week, next week during the day, I'm open.
About you in the middle of the day.
What time do you start on
No,
Thursday, John?
Yeah.
15th.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Available during the middle of.
I need to block it out on my calendar. So I just need some notice because I've got recurring client meetings and stuff that I do. So I just need like a few days notice so I can block it out.
I prefer, I got a pretty big workshop that night, so. Encampment, so I prefer to do it like.
About like
Even late morning, like,
We're looking at 15th.
would late morning work for you guys? On the 15th, that Thursday?
Yeah, it should.
10 o'clock work for you guys?
In the morning.
Mhm.
Sure, next Thursday.
Yep. Okay, and I'll get with Marie and have her notice it. So we'll have a workshop to discuss the planning and zoning officer position and the public works director job description next Thursday at 10.
Yeah, I won't be there. Saratoga's hosting the wrestling meet and I'm running the clocks
On Thursday morning?
all day. It's a try.
That was Friday.
Have it on the 15th.
Huh.
Because they're going to Kremlin on the 16th and 17th.
I'll get with Marie and get that noticed and we'll see you guys next Thursday, 10 o'clock. So, okay, any other further business?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Meeting adjourns at 9:45. Next town council meeting will be on Tuesday, December 20th, 6 P.M.
What do you got? Which one's mine?
We'll see you guys.
Thank you.
Wow, he doesn't do that. You see that? You. And all of those for you as well, ma'am? Ma'am, honey, or not ma'am, honey, but
Paul Worse.
that's payroll and accounts payable.
Ron needs to sign these.
Ron. needs
Well, I
to-
guess she's gonna be back tomorrow.
She'll be back tomorrow. Well, let's give him to sign them. Dance.
Here, you want to sign this? Got a minute?
Nope.
I got a bunch of other stuff for you to sign too.
It's just one that's all paperclip. Need anything else additional on that one?
No,
You want to sign them now or do you want to wait?
I didn't date it.
Sign here.
that's okay. I don't mind waiting.
These, oh, yeah, I can, I'll send whatever, I'll send everything you got.
Whoops. Okay.
Let's make sure that's.
There you go.
Those are those minutes from the past.
What's this? Do I sign this?
Um,
Do I sign that? Or do I sign that?
Something.
we need to talk to Marie when she gets
Do I
back.
sign these?
Why we can't,
Thing, John, that.
What is-
because it should be dialed and stuff.
Why am I signing this?
Call in
Am I
and
signing for?
it says the host and participants.
That should be the same. You should just have, the only difference would be you'd have that post.
All right. One, next, Sarah. Oh, where'd it go?
Does that sound right? Pro tem. Authorize.
Six.
Yep.
Then you sign for me.
But if the second signature person is not here.
This is second signature. Marie. So there's three of us on the signature card, me, him and Marie.
So I think as long as it's the two party. All right,
Yeah, they bought pre-printed checks to have that on there.
all right. I'm,
And then,
About that
yeah,
one.
we don't need that signed yet.
Okay,
Um,
maybe the last.
this is like a balance.
That airport deal.
Yeah, and Bill's out there balance.
why wasn't this in Black Cat?
That-
4,000. This was the other one, right? Because the other one was an R4 for 14.
Yeah,
This was the,
request number.
they usually
three.
send that in Black Cat. We'll wait and see if they don't. send
Okay.
it.
Okay,
Dave called these pisses off.
okay,
That works.
thank you.
I'm gonna sign all these.
Yep. I need your signature. Right?
Here's
And
the
then-
checks. Can you?
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, I know.
And then also for you,
Not without.
Where's this side?
Sign it again.
Gosh, if I knew you'd do that, I'd have brought you some paper. I should shut this up.